Memories of Bobby and Zadie and my booby, who I would go to. Bobby was my mother's mother, and my booby was my father's mother. And whenever we go to Booby's house, she would always have, she was more of a cook, and she would have these cookies with poppy seeds in them. Do you know poppy seeds? Yeah. These poppy seed cookies she would make, and she would make krepla, like homemade. You know, do you remember that krepla? Like this is Ashkenazi food, okay? Chicken soup with krepla in it, and she always wanted, her only pleasure was that we were eating. If we were eating, she was happy, all right? Like eating, and she's always afraid we're not eating enough. And they would always give us money, right? Just like, it wasn't our birthday, but it was like, you know, they give us money and we're like all excited. And you see that grandparents have a special role to play in their grandchildren's lives, but it's not just the food, and it's not just the money and the candy. There's a role to play in grandchildren's lives. I'm not above you yet. I hope, please God, that you'll give me a blessing that one day that I should have grandchildren too. But our children are not married yet. But I'm hoping, I actually said, come. I actually said to my children are, we have tengo cinco hijos. Tengo cinco hijos. Can I dazzle you with my Spanish? Ready? I know how to say 3 things in Spanish. No me secuestre. No tengo dinero. Tengo cinco hijos. Okay? That's my Spanish. Okay. So my children are 23, 21, 18, 16, and 14. Okay? Girl, boy, girl, girl. So I told my children that there's a window when people say to you, your friends, you're too young, you look too young to be a grandmother. I go, my window is closing. Okay? Let's go. All right. But there is a heavier and more important role that every grandparent can play. I have met, so even though I'm not a grandmother yet, I have met many adults, and that's mostly who I teach and who I'm with. Please. I meet many adults, and many of them have told me that they made different decisions in life, and sometimes very important decisions, because of their memories of their grandmother or their grandfather. What are these important decisions? Should I marry a Jew or should I marry a non-Jew? Should I send my kids to Jewish school or not Jewish school? Am I going to make Shabbat on Friday night or are we going to a movie? Do you understand? Some of these decisions, definitely who to marry, will literally change the course of generations in a family. And memories, and people tell me these memories. I remember my Bubby, they tell me, lighting the Shabbat candles. I remember my Zadie putting on tefillin, talis, being under my Zadie's talis. She was saying the Birkat HaMazon, the blessings after the meal. They're watching you. They're watching you. And I have to tell you, I know a family in Toronto, in their 70s, she was in her 70s, the family's name is Berman. In the 70s, Helen Berman, who is a very great woman, her and her husband started learning with Aish Torah in Toronto, and they decided to kosher their home. In their 70s, it's never too late to be an example. And they really are watching us. They really are. I told a story last night that I want to repeat. Some of you weren't there. Many times we tell our children or grandchildren values, right? Things that they should know and remember, things that are important. And what do your grandchildren sometimes do when you do this? Okay? Sometimes they're rolling their eyes, or they're just like, and they're not thinking, or they're walking away, you're talking to the back of their head, right? Okay? So I told the story last night, I'll repeat it, that our son, Zev, who's 21, he joined the Israeli army. Right? He was in yeshiva and he decided to join the Israeli army. He became a Chayal Boded, a lone soldier. A lone soldier is somebody who serves in the IDF, but their family does not live in Israel. So I lead these trips to Israel it's called the Jewish Women's Renaissance Project. And this year we're bringing 1,000 women from 9 different countries, including Mexico. And on the trips, on Friday night, when we have Friday night Shabbat dinner at the Aish Center overlooking the Kotel, we put lone soldiers from the Jewish agency sends us, and we put one at every table. So that these women can now mother, they haven't been mothering their children all week long, they've been in Israel, so they get to mother the soldiers get all these Jewish mothers, they get a nice meal. And we often have the soldiers get up and they talk about how, why they decided to join the army, what do their parents think. So of course, the year that my son was in the army, he was one of the lone soldiers, and he got up to speak. And he said, why did I decide to join the Israeli army? He said, my parents told us, no matter where we lived in the world, this is not your home. Israel's your home. And all the women went, oh. And I was like, you've got to be kidding. I did say that. But when I used to say that, what did Zev do? And what did all my children do? Ima the Zionist. Oh, yeah. Right. Zev was the #1 mocker when I would do this. Because I would go onto Nefesh B'Nefesh sites, like this organization that helps you make Aliyah, and I would watch live the people coming off the planes and kissing the ground, and I'd cry. Because my dream is to live in Israel. And my kids would be like, look at Ima, look at she's crying. Oh, Ima's so sad. But now he's getting up, and he's saying, no matter what my parents taught me, and that's why I decided to join the Israeli army. What did this teach me?
They listen.
They're listening. It doesn't look like they're listening. It looks like they're walking away and rolling their eyes and mocking, but they are watching and they are listening. And it's all going into their hard drive, like in a computer. And if it's in the hard drive, one day, they might actually access it and live it. How many things did you make fun of your parents or say, I'll never be like that? And suddenly, and you thought your parents were so stupid, and now you realize they weren't so stupid after all. And how many people quote, my father always told me this, my mother always told me that. As adults, they tell me, in heartfelt. But at the time when you were a teenager, and your mother and father said this to you, you're like embarrassed in front of your friends, like, stop talking, okay? You give and you give and you give to your children, so that, and your success as a parent, if they leave you. If they leave you. You hope they live in the same city. You hope they come for Shabbat. You hope they come to the Passover Seder. You hope they pick up the phone once in a while. But really, if they cling to you and they don't go out into the world, something went wrong. But you give and you give and you give to your spouse, only that they'll come closer to you. If they leave you, something went wrong. So for those of us who are still blessed to be married, that it's very important, and it's a mistake that we make in marriage, is that once we have children, we bump our husband down the ladder in terms of your attention. Because you're like, oh, because my children need me. You know what? He needs you too. He needs you too. He actually needs you more than you need him. You see with husbands and wives, an elderly couple, so when the wife dies, what does the husband do? He marries again, like that, the next day, okay? When the husband dies, what does the woman do? She goes on cruises with her friends, okay? Because men, the deepest, most emotional relationship they're going to have in their lives is with their wife. They don't have deep emotional relationships with their friends. What do the guys talk about? Sports. Politics, sports, and money. That's it, man. Okay? Women can have a deep emotional bonding relationship with the woman behind her in the grocery line. Okay? By the time you get home, you're like, okay? We get a lot of satisfaction and emotional satisfaction from our girlfriends. For a man, it's really only his wife. And that's why when his wife dies, he marries again. He can't be alone. He needs that. He needs that very, very badly. Before his wife, who was it? His mother. And that's why the Torah tells a man, leave your parents' house and cling to your wife. They don't tell a woman that. The Torah doesn't say to a woman, leave your parents' house and cling to your husband. We naturally do. A man has to be told, separate now. And I know that you who have sons, this is painful, but the Torah tells him, you have to have a certain separation now from your parents and your mother, because you must cling to your wife. This is now your prime relationship, your focus, the most important relationship. So, now the mother's like, what happened? What happened? If you make your children the most important and most meaningful aspect of your life, you're going to be pretty darn disappointed if you're a good parent when they leave. Because there goes my meaning. There goes what? And I know women who literally go into mourning and fall into depression because their whole life was their children. Don't make your children your whole life. They're an important part of your life. Your most important relationship is with your spouse. But even beyond your spouse, you have to also have a life. Community, chesed, kindness, helping people, meaning, a relationship with God. Do you understand? You can't, we're taught that if I'm not for myself, who am I for? You have to be good to you. You have to take care of you in terms of fitness, eating right, having relationships, friendships. My mother, she loves to travel. She goes to exotic places. My father wants his chair and his television, doesn't want to leave his den, okay? So my mother travels. She has friends that she goes traveling with. Right? My parents have a very wonderful relationship, but my mother has things outside of that relationship too. So you have to not, to make your children, it's also not just a mistake for you because they're going to leave. It's also a mistake for them. It's a very heavy burden for them to bear that they are your meaning.